Today, we're looking at a blue ink by Blackstone, Barrier Reef Blue. Hi, I'm Adam, and I'm an ink guy. I get inks, test them, and share the results with you. Now, there's timestamps down below so that if you are in a hurry, you can skip around. But if you got the time, I'd appreciate you checking out the entire video. You can also follow me over on Instagram, and if you're new here, I would invite you to subscribe. To make sure I have a range of experience with this ink, I do the writing samples. I then put the ink into this Platinum 3776 with a broad nib, wrote with it for a day, and used it to take my notes for this video. This first writing sample is done on Clairfontaine, Tomoe River, and Rhodia paper in order to have some kind of standardization to look at. There's additional writing samples later in the video. Now, let's look at the writing sample. I picked this ink up in sample form, so it came in a vial like this. And to keep my writing samples consistent, I use a Jinhao 159 with a Goulet 1.1 stub, a Jinhao X 450 with a Goulet medium, and a Jinhao X 750 with a Goulet extra fine. Let's take a look at the Clairfontaine. No bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather, spread, halo sheen, and no shade. The extra fine is lighter than the stub, a lot lighter than the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, and 13 seconds to dry. Medium is darker than the extra fine, but nowhere near as dark as the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen, or shade, 21 seconds to dry. Scrubby for both show us no color variation, and we didn't get it. Tomoe River. With no bleeding, normal Tomoe River ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, or shade. The extra fine is lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, and 20 seconds to dry. Medium is the same tone as the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, 31 seconds to dry. Scrubby for both show us no color variation, and we didn't get any. And Rhodia. With no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, and no shade. The extra fine is quite a bit lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen. There is a very light peppering of shading that is occurring within here. 16 seconds to dry. Medium is darker than the extra fine, not as dark as the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen, or shade. 23 seconds to dry. Now the scrubby of the extra fine does show us a tiny bit of color variation. We do get a little bit of that peppering in there. The medium shows none, and we had none. I agree with Vita that I've learned a lot by doing multiple chromatographies. The one on the left is done the way it's supposed to be done. I put a line of ink down and immediately put it into water for 10 to 15 seconds. And you see that this is fleeing away from the water. It's absolutely running. And the first tone you come into is a very light turquoise before you get to a very dark blue. Really interesting. Much more interesting, just visually and how it looks, is the one on the right that I let dry for 10 minutes. Now, that's because it looks as if you flipped it upside down, it's the way things get get darker as you get deeper into the ocean. It's just, it was an observation that happened to happen on an ink called Barrier Reef Blue. The bottom of it, the turquoise that's there, is much more noticeable. It is clinging to the filter paper as it's moving up, but not forming a line and not showing permanence. It moves up and shows that very dark, bright blue that makes this a very nice ink. Resistance tests are done to see how well this ink can be expected to perform on the page, and more importantly, how hard it might be to clean from your pen. I let the smear dry for 3 days before testing it. Looking at the highlighter, I would not use this in a note-taking situation if I wanted to go back and highlight because it's not good for it. Just bad. Okay? Interestingly, is as you come across the swab, you do see some sheen in there. A little bit of red sheen shows up, although I don't get it in the writing. I just wanted to point out that it's there. Water is completely reactivating and lifting this off the page. We're starting to see the white of the paper easily with the water. The pen flush, same as the water. You're starting to see the white of the paper come through. It only took water for me to get this out of my pen. The 1/3 bleach solution, I didn't need it, but it completely obliterates this ink. For the inks I've tested, I have found an average viscosity of 2.5, with a realm of normal being from 2.1 to 2.9. Now I'm going to link a video where I show how I test it and how I calculate the data. Blackstone's Barrier Reef Blue has a viscosity of 3.07, making this a dry ink. To find my average dry times, I use my writing samples done on Clairfontaine, Tomoe River, and Rhodia paper. I average all 6 of those numbers. Now for the inks I've tested, I found an average dry time of 17 seconds, with the realm of normal being from 13 to 21 seconds. Blackstone's Barrier Reef Blue has an average dry time of 21 seconds, making it on the very high side of normal, but still normal. Instead of finding inks that look like Blackstone's Barrier Reef Blue, I would prefer to find an ink that complements its color on the page. I went with a nice gray, and I chose Noodler's Lexington Gray. The second writing sample is done on yellow Rhodia, black and red, and white lines paper. Here we're looking at the yellow Rhodia, not looking for performance, really looking to see what kind of tone variation might we get. And the thing is, this is a very opaque and strong dye. It has no effect whatsoever for having this yellow backdrop, which is good to know in a professional environment. Black and red notebooks have no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, and no shade. The extra fine is lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, only the lightest specklings of some shading, 6 seconds to dry. Medium is a little bit darker than the extra fine, not as dark as the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen, or shade, 9 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both shows no color variation, although there are speckles of darker letters in the extra fine. And white lines paper, which we get a lot of bleed spots that occur. It does not touch the page underneath, but it does create a lot of ghosting. That means you can't use the back of the page. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, or shade. The extra fine is lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, or shade, 5 seconds to dry. Medium is the same tone as the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, and no shade, 8 seconds to dry. Scrubby for both show no color variation, and we didn't get any, and that is all that I have for the writing sample. So what do I think of Blackstone's Barrier Reef Blue? The swab and the writing look the same. It looks as good, which is not a lot of times. Very rarely does an ink match so perfectly to its swab as this one does. So that just makes it an incredibly solid performing ink, and there were no shark bits in the sample, so they were scooping it right out and leaving the guppies behind. So what nib and pen give the best writing experience with this ink? I really preferred it out of a wet fine or wet medium. I thought the color that went down was really incredibly nice to look at. It drew attention to where I wanted it to, but it wasn't overbearing on the paper. If you've enjoyed this video and made it this far, I'd appreciate a thumbs up. And if you didn't like it, give me a thumbs down and tell me why. Thanks for watching.